All right, all right. Welcome in, folks. I apologize there if I was a little bit delayed getting on. I didn't see that the stream had actually started. But anyways, good to be with you guys on this Wednesday night. It is 8:18 p.m. And we got some stuff to cover with you guys. So tonight we're going to dive into a handful of different topics. Obviously, we got to talk about the four nations. That first matchup between Canada and USA could not have been any better. Three fights within 9 seconds or whatever it was. The Kachuk brothers are national heroes, fan for life. You guys are my guys. I don't care what team you're playing on. I will forever root for you. And we got to get ready for tomorrow night's game. Does it mean anything if USA loses the actual finals? We will dive into that. There is some free agent news to discuss for the Broncos. Tonight should be a pretty quick hitter, by the way, but there are some free agent news to discuss with the Broncos. ESPN put out their top 50 free agents and the most likely destinations, or the best destinations, I should say, for those free agents. And they did have two players in the ESPN top 50 that they thought would be a great fit with the Denver Broncos. So we'll break that down. There are some relatively big names from Sean Payton's past that might be hitting free agency here, and doesn't make sense for the Broncos. In particular, I'm talking about Taysum Hill. I've got a very strong opinion on that. I won't tell you what it is, but stay tuned for it. I feel relatively passionate about my answer on whether the Broncos should pursue Taysum Hill. Are there any free agent tight ends out there? You guys that have been watching the podcast for a while know that I've been advising that the Broncos should sign a free agent tight end and draft a young tight end. I've been saying the Broncos need to sign a free agent running back, and they need to draft a running back. The Broncos need to draft a wide receiver. Maybe, is there a trade out there? Deebo Samuel, hint, hint. They could possibly pursue that in free agency. On the defensive side of the ball, what do the Broncos need? Well, they need an inside linebacker. Good evening, Mel Marks. I appreciate you joining in. As you guys can see from Mel, who just tuned in from YouTube, I can see your guys' comments, whether you're on Twitter, whether you're on YouTube. Send in the comments right there on this thread, and it will pop up live on this stream. I love having an interactive stream, so if you guys have any questions or comments for me, fire them away. Or if you got any ideas for free agency that you want me to look into, maybe even some college players that you love that you'd like me to do a scouting report on, I'm going to do some breakdowns on all these players, at least the players that I think are likely candidates for the Broncos in the draft. But anyways, I digress there just a little bit. Before I get going, I do want to take a quick second here to thank my sponsors at Mount Polumbus Speaks. But before I thank my sponsors, I want to thank you guys, because this podcast would not be sponsored without your support. So I appreciate all of you guys that have tuned in for Mount Polumbus Speaks. If you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, head on over to my YouTube, because that's where all my content lives. And I do put out content that is unique only to YouTube. So if you don't want to miss out on any of my stuff, make sure you head on over there and hit subscribe and like on this video if you want to help me out with the algorithm. I'd certainly be grateful. Anyways, I do want to take a quick second here to thank my title sponsor, Safeway. I've been working on and off with Safeway for about 6 years now, in both philanthropic, both and with charity. Let me try that. A little bit easier. 3 syllables. Tough for Tyler to say. Both with charity work and business-wise and radio. They've been a part of Mount Polumbus beat ovarian cancer, and they've donated probably $500,000-$600,000, probably even more than that, to ovarian cancer awareness. So I'm grateful to them, but I also just want to point out that they are better than their competitors. They are. If you haven't really shopped around, if you haven't tasted the fresh foods and local flavors out of Safeway, you're missing out. But what I really want to sell you guys on tonight is their app. The Safeway app is phenomenal. You can order directly on that app. They'll save your orders so you can just repeat it down the road. That's what I do. I got one order that I just put in just about every other week, and then I add on to it for whatever I might need. And you're going to save a boatload of money. You're going to get points that you get to redeem down the road to save a bunch of money, and I know a bunch of people are doing that. They'll deliver the food directly to your door, and you can skip out on all the delivery apps because Safeway will handle it all for you. So Safeway Fresh Foods, local flavors. Make sure you check them out. And I do want to give a quick shout out to my friends over at Ascend Barbershop. My man, Alfred Castro. That's him right there. I'm going to see him tomorrow. He's been my personal barber now for over 5 years. It is a luxury experience. I'll never go back to one of the cheaper chains that are out there. Once you've got a good barber, you never want to lose them. And I'm telling you, Alfred and Anthony, both over there, they are phenomenal at what they do. Could not recommend them anymore. If you're in the Parker area, make sure you check out the Ascend Barber Shop for a luxury barber experience. Okay. So where do we want to start tonight? We got Four Nations stuff. We got ESPN Top 50, Taysum Hill, Zach Ertz, maybe even the return of Von Miller. Do we want to talk crazy here? All of a sudden I see a lot of people talking about the return of Von Miller. Could that make sense for the Denver Broncos? We'll cover all that, but I do want to just take a quick second here to dive into the Four Nations stuff because I'll tell you, man, I admit I was a skeptic of the Four Nations idea for the NHL. And I will fully admit I did not understand hockey culture the way that I should have. I'm a hockey fan. I'm an Avalanche fan. But I didn't understand the locker room of hockey the way that I should have because I keep looking at all these all-star games that are going on in other sports and football and in basketball, and it's just pathetic. It's just embarrassing. NBA, shockingly, actually had better ratings than the Four Nations Cup. Not that much better. Four Nations, USA, Canada, that brought in 4.4 million viewers here in the U.S., and the NBA All-Star Game brought in 4.9, even with that broken, pathetic product. So I'm bummed out, actually, although that was tremendous growth for hockey because the average viewership is about 1 million people for the average NHL game. I'm thrilled for them at the same time for the growth that they've seen and for the product that they're putting out there because when I first thought of this, I'm sitting here thinking about basketball players and, you know, how often these guys are sitting out, load management. You know, they get to the All-Star break and they hit Cabo. They go to Vegas. They do whatever. It's vacation time, right? And when these guys get to this All-Star break, they're mentally checked out. They don't want to participate. They're not going to go out there and put effort out on that court. And I kind of thought to myself, man, you're going to ask these hockey players who are in the grind of their season to go represent their country, and they're banged up. They got ankle injuries. They got rib injuries. They got whatever. They got hip flexors. I promise you, Nathan McKinnon, Devon Taves, Cale McCarr, who are all playing for Team Canada, who they could go down in flames. Yeah, that's right. Blame Canada. For now, until they come back to the Avalanche, then they're my guys again. I promise you, all of those guys are fighting through some form of injury. Now, are you injured or are you hurt? Those are always the key differentiators. And I do think that football and hockey, the culture is very similar. If you are hurt, you play. If you are injured, you do not. Everybody's hurt. Everybody's banged up. And the difference there is whether you were actually injured or not. But I kind of thought to myself, man, you're going to ask these guys who are in the middle of just a grueling season to go out there and put it all out on the line. I don't know. I guess we'll see what it looks like. I guess we'll see if these guys are going to have enough passion, if they're going to have enough care. Boy, did they answer that question. Because we all know that they care. I mean, goodness gracious. I've watched all of the Team USA games. Admittedly, that Canada game was far superior to the other games. Sweden, we could forget that one. We knew they could lose it. They could move on to the finals either way. But that game against Canada, I got to tell you, yes, watching the Avalanche win a Stanley Cup takes the cake. Outside of watching the Avalanche win a Stanley Cup, that was my favorite game of hockey I've ever watched in my life. I mean, it was fireworks from the get-go, and it wasn't just the fights, man. First out, shout out to the Kachuk brothers. Those are my guys. Those are my heroes. I'll be a fan for life of you guys. But it was not just the fights at the beginning of the game. It was the energy. It was the tempo. It was the big hits that these guys were delivering on both sides. And I do think that Team USA was significantly more physical in that game than Canada was. We'll see what it looks like in the rematch here. But the physicality, the energy, the passion that those guys brought, they ain't like NBA players. They're not looking for a mental vacation. They don't care if they're hurt. They're out there playing ball. They're out there playing puck. Out there playing with the puck. That's what those guys are doing. And I got to tell you, it's a phenomenal product. So if you guys did not watch the first matchup between USA and Canada, you have got to tune in tomorrow night. The first matchup was out there in Montreal, and it was a pretty cool environment. I got to give them credit. Despite the booing of the national anthem and all the political stuff that's going on, that was just an in-touch crowd that understands hockey, that brought a lot to the overall environment of the game. So it was a really cool experience. The next game is in Boston tomorrow night. It's the finals, USA versus Canada, and that first game is going to be jack squat if USA doesn't win this second game. So I'm all in for that thing tomorrow. I got my USA onesie I'm going to wear to work to do my radio show, and I cannot wait to watch the physicality. Will we get as many fights as we got last time? Probably not. I'd imagine that gets dialed down a little bit. I hope that Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, Taves, I hope that those guys all stay safe out there, but I also hope that they get their brains beat in on the scoreboard, because I have zero conflict of interest. I know there's a lot of Avalanche fans out there right now that have got, for whatever reason, some conflict of interest of what team they're rooting for. Hey, this is USA, baby. I don't care about the political stuff. I don't. Do I think that that added to the interest of the game? Yeah, probably. Not probably. Yes, it did. But my rooting interest has nothing to do with that. It's just Team USA. When you see those colors go on and you see the logo, I don't know about you guys. It got my blood pumping a little bit. So I had a blast watching it and can't wait for tomorrow night. I actually think I'm going to do a live stream if I can during the game. So if you guys want to hang out with me during it, come check out Mount Polumbus Speaks. We'll do a live watch party and we can have a little bit of fun. All right. Again, if you are out there, and you want to be interactive, if you've got any questions, any comments for me, send them in. Your comments will pop up right live on screen. I don't have to do anything. They will automatically make it on there. So have some fun with that, and let's stay interactive as we move over to Broncos talk. But before I do that, I do want to take a quick second to give a shameless plug for myself. I appreciate you guys that are watching right now. I'm trying like crazy to grow my YouTube audience, so if you'd please do me a favor, if you enjoy the content that I put out, hit that link that's in my bio on Twitter right now. Go on over to YouTube and hit subscribe. It'll take you a total of 5 seconds. Number one, you'll help my channel grow. Number two, you won't miss out on any of my content moving forward. And if you really want to help this channel grow, you can hit like and comment on the algorithm for this video itself, and it's amazing what just 2 or 3 comments does for the algorithm over there on YouTube. So would appreciate the support if you guys could take 5 seconds out of your day and go on over to my channel and hit subscribe. Okay, ESPN put out their top 50 free agents and what they thought the most likely destinations would be for them. They did have 2 players in their top 50 that they thought would make sense for the Denver Broncos, and it makes sense to me. I'm going to pull up a list of the free agent running backs really quick, so hang with me as I pull that up, because I do want to talk through this list here a little bit. The first player that they had that made sense for the Broncos was Aaron Jones. So Aaron Jones, who has been on a couple of teams now, he's obviously a fantastic football player, but he is aging a little bit. He's 30 years old. In running back terms, that's like 35 in comparison to other positions that are out there. Last year, he was making $7 million per year. What would his going rate be on the next deal? I would guess he doesn't want to go down. I'm pretty confident he doesn't want to go down from $7 million. So if you want to go after Aaron Jones, if you pay attention to the free agents on Spot Rack does have Aaron Jones as the best available running back in the free agency market. I've told you already, what if I was planning for the Denver Broncos offseason, what would I do? I would make sure I got myself a free agent running back. I would make sure I got myself a free agent tight end, and I would draft a tight end, and I would draft a running back. Wide receiver, we could figure that one out with the best available options, and I do think there are some trade candidates out there that the Broncos should pursue, in particular Deebo Samuel. If you're looking for a joker, why not go get the best joker in the NFL? Deebo Samuel, to me, I know he's coming off of a down year. Actually, the last couple of years have been down. He is still one of the more dynamic players in the NFL, and I'm highly interested. Fourth rounder, give me some Deebo. You get him for a fourth rounder, give me some Deebo. But let's go back to the running backs for a second. What type of running back should the Broncos be looking for? Well, I guess it's not a terrible idea to get a veteran at that position. If you're planning on drafting a young player as well, it never hurts to have a veteran with some knowledge that can pass on that football IQ to the younger players. I think that Aaron Jones is probably going to be the most expensive running back that's on the market. And if you were to ask me, the running backs that are out there, so here's the running backs that are going to be available in free agency. It's not an awesome list. You've got Aaron Jones. You've got Raheem Mostert from Miami. You've got Najee Harris from Pittsburgh. You got Jeff Wilson, A.J. Dillon, Nick Chubb, Javonte Williams, who if the Broncos want to re-sign him, they could, although they won't. I'd be shocked if the Broncos actually re-sign Javonte Williams. So of that list, what makes sense? Something middle of the road. You just want a guy that you trust that can give you maybe 2 years of service as you prepare your young guy that you're going to draft. I guess Aaron Jones would fit the mold of older guy, but I think he's going to be too expensive. I'm not looking for a $7 or $8 million running back. The Broncos do have money to spend, which is the good news. But my guy that I would choose of that list would be Najee Harris. So am I open to Aaron Jones? Sure. Am I open to Raheem Mostert? Sure. Are there a couple others? J.K. Dobbins? Yeah, I'm interested in a handful of these guys, but they do need to sign a free agent running back. So my preference would be Najee Harris, but I'm not going to lose my mind if they pick one of the other options that are out there. The other name that is on the ESPN top 50 free agents that they had landing with the Denver Broncos was Nick Bolton from the Kansas City Chiefs. Good baller. Good baller. That's all I got to say about Nick Bolton. There are a handful of 3-4 inside linebackers that are hitting free agency that I think the Broncos should pursue. I do think that they should sign one in free agency. I don't think they want to count on the draft to fill that position. I think that should actually be one of the priorities in terms of free agency, should be inside linebacker for the Broncos. Nick Bolton, what I like about Nick is he's a young football player. He's only entering year 5, right? And he's coming off a pretty damn good season, man. 106 combined tackles, 33 assists. He had 3 sacks. He had himself an interception. And obviously a whole bunch of solo tackles that are in the mix there. Other years for the Chiefs, 2023 was a down year. I think he was a little bit injured. In 2022, he had 180 combined tackles. His rookie year, he had 112 combined tackles. What I like about Nick Bolton is that he gives you a little bit of mass inside. He's a little bit of a bigger-bodied guy. One name that a lot of media folks are talking about at inside linebacker right now is Zach Bond off of the Eagles. I like Zach, but he's a one-hit wonder. He's been in the league now for a hot minute, and he's really only had one really good season. It happened to be last year. It was a fantastic season, but I don't think that Zach Bond gives you the same presence that a Nick Bolton will give you. I mean, if you look at Zach Bond's stats, he had a great year last year, 151 combined tackles. Year before that, 30, 16, 30, 12. He's going into year 6, and he's literally a one-hit wonder. Now, it was a fantastic year, and he's going to get paid a handsome amount of money because it was a fantastic year. But I don't think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to let him walk, so I'd cross him off the list. My personal favorite inside linebacker that I want the Broncos to pursue, Dre Greenlaw. Give me some Dre Greenlaw. I love the way that dude plays ball, and he has been really the number 2 linebacker out there with the 49ers. because he plays with another phenomenal linebacker right next to his side. I think he's going into year 6 or 7, so a year or two older than Nick Bolton, but he's been doing it for a long time at a very high level. 2024, he was injured. Didn't have a lot of playing time. His stats don't really scream much, but you look at the years before that, and Drake Greenlaw has just been a baller for a long, long time, and he's absolutely ready to step into a number 1 role. So those are the 2 names that made it on the top 50 list that you can keep an eye on. All right. I've got a couple other things that I want to get to here. I might save 1 or 2 of them for the next podcast because we're already at 20 minutes here, and I'm going to try to keep this to about 25 minutes or less tonight. So the last topic I want to talk about with you guys is the idea of getting the band back together. Is it a bad idea? A lot of people hate the fact that Sean Payton is making the Broncos the Saints West. They don't like it. They think it's a little bit lazy. They think he's just going back to the well because he's brought in a handful of different players that have been from the Saints. Obviously, a bunch of the coaches are coming from the Saints. And here's what I'll tell you about that. I bring this up because I'm going to talk about Taysum Hill. But let's just talk about the idea, generally speaking, of going back to the well. Everybody does it. I was an 8-year player in the NFL because I was a product of being a Mike Shanahan player. Everywhere I went was either Mike Shanahan or a Mike Shanahan disciple. Why? Because I was a fringe starter my whole career. I started 4 out of my 8 years. The other 4 years, I was a bubble starter, halftime, right? And why did I continue to have job time after time after time? Because coaches knew me. They trusted me. They didn't have to invest a lot in me. They knew that if my number got called, I wasn't going to make mental mistakes. I just fit the system. Right? So when you find system guys, I think it makes sense to go back to the well. I've got no problem with Sean Payton bringing in role player after role player from his past because they're guys that he knows, that he trusts, that knows his system, that knows what he wants to do, and they're not necessarily going to be counted on to be the playmakers of this team. Now, where I think it's a bad idea to go back in time is when you try to recreate magic with somebody that's over the hill. And Taysum Hill is getting brought up for the Denver Broncos because rumor has it that Taysum is going to be released by the Saints here relatively soon. And so naturally people are connecting dots to Sean Payton because Sean Payton was able to get the best out of Taysum Hill in 22 and 21. Taysum, it's been 3 years. No, next year it'll have been 4 years since he had a productive year in the NFL. In 2024, 21 yards, 1 interception, injured. 2023, 83 yards, 1 touchdown, injured. 2022, 240 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Injured, not very productive. Now, 2021 and 2020, those were special years. Those were magical years. 978 yards, 928 yards. He had 4 touchdowns in both of those years. He also had 5 interceptions in one. He had 2 interceptions in the other. Taysum Hill has got a lot of versatility. He could be a backup quarterback. He could be a tight end. He could be a fullback. He could be an off-ball tight end. He could be a lot of things, right? He could play even a little bit of wide receiver if you really were in a pinch. Does it make sense? No, because it doesn't fit the model of what I think makes sense for going back to the well, trying to get the band back together. You get glue guys. You get rotational guys. You get guys that you don't have to invest in, that are backups, that maybe are fringe starters, guys that you know are just going to be system. They work because they're in the system. But when you try to recreate magic that has not had any magic in the tank for 4 seasons, it's probably going to be a bad idea. And my gut tells me if the Denver Broncos tried to sign Taysum Hill, I think it would just get in the way. I think that Sean would try to get super creative with Taysum. And honestly, you're probably going to get more bang for the buck for featuring Marvin Mims and whatever snaps Taysum Hill would get. Now, the other side of the coin is, what's it going to cost? Right? And it's not going to cost you anything. You're going to get Taysum Hill very cheap because he's been injured for so many years now. So it is a low-risk proposition. I wouldn't lose my mind if the Broncos brought him in, but they better be willing to cut bait quickly if they don't see any signs of the magic of the past. Because if you keep him on the roster, Sean's got a lot of loyalty to the guy, and he's probably just the back of his mind. He's going to be thinking, I can create magic out of that again, and it's just probably not going to work. I would much prefer to see the Broncos go pursue Deebo Samuel for the Joker role than Taysum Hill. So that's my feeling on it. I think Taysum Hill would be a big mistake for the Broncos. I am not for it, and I also wouldn't be surprised if the Broncos signed him because I know that Sean likes his guys. All right, that's it for tonight. I appreciate you guys all tuning in to Mount Polumbus Speaks here. Make sure you guys tune in tomorrow night as we do a little live watch along. Again, I want to thank my sponsors, Safeway. I want to thank my sponsors, Ascend Barbershop out in Parker. Safeway, fresh foods, local flavors. They've got an incredible delivery app. Make sure you download it. And Ascend Barbershop out there in Parker. It's a luxury barbershop. They've been my guys for 5-6 years. The only dudes that have cut my hair and the only dudes I will trust to trim my beard. I don't even do it myself. Those guys do it for me. Make sure you let them know that Tyler sent you on over. All right, love you guys. I'll be back with you